Today, we're looking at the Quran through a completely different lens, not as a history book, but as a living, self-correcting system, a kind of spiritual operating system built on what the source material calls a triangle of faith and knowledge.
So let's start with a big question. We usually think of holy books as a timeline, right? A story that starts at A and ends at Z. But what if that's not the point? What if the structure itself is the message?
Exactly. We're going to explore this idea of the Quran as a complete closed system. Think of it less like a novel and more like a piece of code, or a complex machine where all the parts are working together all at once.
And here's the core concept. In this system, the beginning, the error, the fix, and the end aren't just steps in a sequence. They're all running simultaneously all the time. The story of Adam isn't just something that happened, it's something that is happening.
Okay, so every system has to start somewhere, right? It has to boot up. And for this one, the initial state isn't perfect. It actually boots up with an intentional error, a deliberate instability that gets the whole thing moving. So you've got these three figures, Adam, Hawā, and Iblīs. But instead of just characters in a drama, think of them as the system's starting variables. They represent the initial conditions, and one of them, Iblīs, introduces the first major bug into the code.
And you can see the bug being written into the code in these two specific verses. It's a two-part fracture. First, you have the logic of comparison introduced by the angels. Then you get the actual transgression from Iblīs. I am better than him. That's the core of the error.
And this is absolutely crucial to understand. The system error isn't about ignorance. It's not that Iblīs didn't know what to do. The error is pride. It's a conscious refusal to align with the system's primary command. It's an ego problem, not a knowledge gap. So you've got a system that starts with a bug. What happens next? Well, it has a built-in debugging tool, a self-correction protocol. It's not about brute force. It's a function called rushd, which means right direction. And this is the Purifier triangle that runs the debug. Ibrāhīm, Isḥāq, and Ismāʿīl aren't just historical figures here. They are the functions that recompile the corrupted code. They represent patience, submission, and the book itself, overriding that initial error of pride.
Now, let's get specific about what rushd really is. This isn't about finding the right answer quickly. It's about maintaining perfect accuracy and alignment when everything is trying to pull you off course. It's precision, sustained under incredible pressure.
Now we come to one of the most fascinating and honestly counterintuitive laws of this entire system. When the system hits a point of critical overload, when the pressure is at its absolute max, it doesn't crash. Instead, something amazing happens. It triggers a transformation. And this transformation follows a very specific three-step algorithm every single time. First, you get a situation of maximum possible constraint. Then, there's a sudden total inversion of that reality. And finally, the person involved is preserved, but in a new elevated state.
And you see this pattern playing out again and again. Ibrāhīm is thrown into the fire. That's maximum constraint. But the system inverts the very nature of fire, making it cool and peaceful. Maryam is alone in the agony of childbirth, maximum constraint. And out of that isolation, life and provision appear. The law is unbreakable.
And here's the key result of this whole process. It's not just about escape. It's about elevation. Idrīs isn't just saved from death. He's raised to a high station. Ibrāhīm doesn't just run from the fire. He walks out with his authority stronger than ever. The system actually upgrades the nodes that pass the test.
So for a complex system to remain stable, it needs internal checks and balances. You know, like checksums in a data file that make sure nothing gets corrupted. In this Quranic system, these anchors prevent knowledge from being twisted into a tool for power and domination.
And what's so fascinating is that these anchors, these stabilizers for the entire system, are embodied by three female figures, Maryam, Āsiyah, and Bilqīs. They are the ones who ensure the integrity of the data. Each one performs a very specific function. Maryam's silence protects divine knowledge from being revealed too early. Āsiyah, right in the heart of Pharaoh's tyranny, realigns herself with truth. And Bilqīs, the powerful queen, shows how to surrender worldly intellect to a higher reality without ego getting in the way. Just listen to this prayer from Āsiyah. It says everything. She is literally surrounded by the worst corruption imaginable. But she doesn't ask for revenge or power. She asks for alignment, for a sanctuary of truth near God, right in the middle of all that falsehood. Okay, so we've mapped out the system's architecture. The origin, the debug protocol, the transformational laws, the anchors. But this isn't just a theoretical model. It's an interactive system, which means it's waiting for a user. And that, of course, is you.
So what actually happens when you open the Qur'an and engage with this code? You're not just a passive reader consuming information. No, you're an active participant. The system actually responds to how you interact with it. So, how does it respond?
Well, it seems there are two main outcomes. If you choose to align with the system, you ascend. Your heart becomes a sanctuary for truth, like Āsiyah's was. But if you refuse to align, the system inverts on you. Knowledge becomes a weapon, and your own ego becomes the virus corrupting the code.
And this might be the most powerful summary of the whole thing. It's the same fire, the same knowledge, the same trials, the same reality. The only variable is the switch you decide to flip. Fixating on falsehood, on idols, that locks the fire into a destructive burn. But aligning with truth through your actions, that flips the switch, and the very same fire becomes a safe, cool passage to the other side.
When you step back and look at it, you realize the whole point of this incredible, complex system isn't to just dump truth on you all at once. It's designed for preservation. It holds truth in a perfectly stable state, protecting it from corruption, waiting for you to access it with the right intention.
And that leaves us with a final, pretty deep question. The sleepers in the cave were protected because their ears were sealed from the noise and corruption of the outside world. So the challenge this system leaves us with is this. Can you go beyond just reading the code? Can you seal your own ears to falsehood and actually embody the system's principles to, in a way, become a living, walking Qur'an yourself?